back? What's going on? Welcome back to another Bitcoin video today. We're going to be getting into interest rates today quite a bit, and the macro and the traditional markets and all that kind of stuff, and then also Bitcoin in the short term, what it's been, how it's been moving, what it's been doing. We have a decent amount of information to discuss, interesting information, and information that some people might not actually expect. So let's get into it. I just want to start by saying the price action has been absolutely ridiculous, and people would have seen this by now. I have seen actually, but it's been a long time since I've seen Bitcoin act this irrational, just jumping in and out of support and resistance, jumping in and out of structures. Look at this triangle, broke down, went all the way down, like 2% down, came all the way back up for no apparent reason and formed some sort of descending broadening channel out of that, just randomly. In the meantime, we're doing all of this on top of this dotted yellow line, which is meant to be our critical invalidation point for a break to the upside. But like the longer we spend just lurking in that region, not seeing a breakout, the more invalid that becomes. So we might even have to change that at some point. We're just going to be seeing what happens here because I don't trust, this. Technically we're above it right now. I can tell you right now, that's not a breakout. Okay, that's not a breakout. We go to the hourly chart. That is not a breakout. That's just random price action. We've seen it 3 times now. So who knows? We might need to actually shift that buying zone from that dotted line. We'll see what happens there. Just know that that's not a breakout at this point. But at this point, yeah, we have this triangle formation completely just threw it out the window for no apparent reason, and now we're in a new formation here. So that's the state of a TA for Bitcoin right now. Just completely ridiculous price action. And, look, to a certain extent, we could have expected this. I mean, we're seeing the lowest volatility we've ever seen on Bitcoin. We're seeing Bitcoin seeing less volatile than the NASDAQ. We're seeing open margin positions at the highest rate they've ever been in the entire history of Bitcoin, which means so many people are using leverage right now. Therefore, rationales in the price action are bound to happen. Also, just general market consensus is a bit like no one really knows what's going on. Not even myself, to be honest with you. Like, I think we're going to go down for a Q4 bottom, but I've made it very clear I don't know what price that's going to be. I think it will be around 17.6K. I think we'll see a double bottom. But again, this is someone myself who spends 10 hours a day staring at charts. When I tell you there's no real decisive answer, you know that the general market population isn't really going to have a decisive answer either. So look, that's just the state of Bitcoin right now. It's pretty confusing in the short-term price action specifically. Now, longer-term price action is exactly as we would expect. There's nothing wrong with the long-term price action. It's doing exactly as we would expect. 4-year cycle is playing out perfectly at this point in time. We have no reason to believe it won't continue to play out perfectly. If we go to the 10-day chart, and this is something I want to look at. I haven't looked at this before. 10-day chart's interesting right now, okay? Because 10-day chart has this downtrending RSI line. And this is just adding to the point that we're going to be seeing a move very shortly, like within the next few days. As mentioned in yesterday's video, before Tuesday, I still think that before Tuesday we'll see a move. Compression's insane. RSI is rejecting from resistance here. It's going to, it's either going to reject or it's going to break out, obviously. But at the same time, and this is interesting, for the first time, and this is really interesting, for the first time since September 2021, we're seeing a bullish MACD cross on the 10-day MACD, right? During that MACD cross of a 10-day MACD in September 2021, we saw the final push up to 69K. Could we be seeing a bottom here? All right. Also on top of this, we're seeing the 200-day SMA on Bitcoin on the 10-day chart holding for support, right? We know the 200-week SMA has been lost. That's been lost. We can bring that up. That's been lost. We're below that. But now the 210-day SMA is being held for support, which is interesting, and it's very clearly being held for support here because that's an evident support zone there, right? So that's interesting as well. So this is what I mean. The price action, there's just so many dimensions to it. You can go to the 3-day chart, you can look at the RSI, look at the MACD, look at the downtrending line on 3-day, you can look at the triangle formation, you can look at the 4-year cycle, you can look at the pink triangle, you can look at old methods like CBBI, you can look at price cycle top, price cycle bottom, you can go into the macro, you can look at all this stuff. And at the end of the day, half of those things are saying the bottom's in, half of them are saying the bottom's not in. What are you meant to do? My opinion on that is you're meant to just trust the 4-year cycle and just trust the buying plan, right? And this is my buying plan here. This is my buying plan. Now, please note the dotted line breakout is a 3-day candle close above the dotted line. And at this point, look, that dotted line's getting a bit sketchy. So we're going to have to see what happens there, to be honest with you. This is just the state of Bitcoin right now. It's an absolute mess. It's a total mess. There's no other way to put it. It's just sloppy charts, sloppy price action. And this is exactly what the market wants. And people say, oh, how can you say that? Because the market's not conscious. The market's not a sentient being. And I say that because this is what happens every bear market, right? Every bear market bottom, every bull market top, it does its best to confuse the hell out of you so you don't get the right price for a bottom or a top. That's what it does. So this is why I'm sticking to the buying plan. I don't care about short term right now. It doesn't matter to me. I know for a fact that we'll be seeing a move very shortly, right? Days away. But I don't care about short term right now because I understand that it's so hard to predict. Because every time you try to predict it, right? I know this is a bit of a rant video at this point, but I mean, it's like every analyst I've spoken to agrees with me here. People who spend 12, 10 hours a day analyzing charts, they all agree with me. Every time you try to predict the move for Bitcoin in the short term in the last 2 weeks, it does the thing and then it just comes back down and it just acts like nothing ever happened. So, you know, what's the use in trying at this point? We're just going to leave the short term alone. We're going to zoom out to the daily chart. The daily chart's the lowest time frame we're looking at this point in time. It's my personal opinion. I don't think you should be looking closer to the daily. I think it's just full of scams and fake outs, and we're going to be looking into it objectively. But I do want to also discuss the macro. And this is a main part of the video, right? Main part of the video is the macro. I want to briefly interrupt this video to talk about the BitGet exchange. Now, the BitGet exchange has 5 times lower fees than Binance, which is commonly referred to as the cheapest exchange in the cryptocurrency market. It's also non-KYC or voluntarily KYC, so you can stay true to the fundamental values of cryptocurrency, one of which being anonymity, of course. It's also got a security fund in there, so if you lose your funds by fault of the exchange or by personal fault, you can make a claim and actually retrieve your funds back. On top of all of this, if you sign up using my referral link, you can get access to exclusive discounts and rewards. This is the best exchange on the cryptocurrency market, and I use it personally, and so should everyone at the Wolves of Crypto YouTube channel. Now, if you're interested in actually learning how to trade for yourself, you can check out the Crypto Academy via the website link in the description below. This is a course developed by myself and Megaworld Crypto, a 10-unit course taking you through every single step from step 1 to step infinite about how to become a trader. Go ahead and check that out and chuck us an email at cryptoacademycourses@gmail.com and we'll get back to you with the full information and payment information if you're interested. Thanks guys for watching the advertisements. Let's get back into the video. The Federal Reserve is having a 95% chance of raising rates by 75 basis point in the next hike on November 2nd, which is very shortly, about 2 weeks away, November 2nd, just under 2 weeks. 95% chance of a 75 basis point hike. Of course, the last hike was 75 basis points, and so a 75 basis point hike would be a consistent equal raise of the rates from the last 2 basis point hikes, right? So it would be consistent. Now, the thing is, if we look at news articles, we look at all the information that's coming out, we look at even the data itself and the expectations, it's most likely at a 51% chance that we see a 75 basis point hike in this raise and then a 50 basis point hike in the next raise, meaning that a pivot's on the way, right? The Fed's going to start winding down their rate hikes in Q4, which again will support the Q4 bottom. And it's also worth noting the markets, they see the future. They don't react to the present, they react to what the future is. If there's evidence that the Fed is going to pivot, that's going to mean the market's going to move upwards before the pivot actually occurs. So that's more evidence for a Q4 bottom, am I right? But look, here's the main thing I want to talk about. People are saying, well, how can they get rid of rate hikes right now? They're not getting rid of them. They're lowering them. They're lowering the magnitude per hike. They still will go higher. But the point is, they can't keep doing this, guys. You know, people are acting like this is a regular time in the market, a regular time, and they can just keep raising rates because they have to do it. It's like, no, they don't have to do it, right? You can see in the UK, they don't have to do it at all. They should do it. They should do it, and it would have short-term consequences, but they don't have to. They can go back to quantitative easing, right? UK did it. They're printing money again. They're not raising. They might be raising rates, but they're printing money again. They're increasing, the balance sheet. They're printing money, printing heaps of cash, pumping the markets over there. The US could do the same thing, and they might have to. They're forced into a corner, and you can see that this isn't a normal time in the markets. Generally speaking, when we're in a correction, you can see the chart here. This is the S&P chart, and then it's the interest rates down below. When we're in a correction on the S&P, okay, here, even here in 2018 briefly, and if you went back in time, you can see more. When we're in a correction on the S&P, they are decreasing rates, generally speaking, because they want to lower the impact on traditional markets, okay? Right now, we're in a downtrend on the S&P, and they're raising rates because they're forced to, okay? That is in itself indicative of the severity of this situation. They are raising rates in a downwards trend. Very dangerous stuff, and it's having negative effects. For example, Japanese yen, negative effects all around the board. You know, I don't need to go into that too much. You guys understand by now. It's been going around forever. You know, for months, people are talking about it every day in videos. Japanese yen getting wrecked, and basically most global currencies getting wrecked. Right. The point is, the US can't, it's not just about the US, it's about the global economy at this point. If the US keeps raising rates for too long, like people are saying, oh, rates are going to go to 7%, it's like, they can't do that. They would destroy everything, right? Whether they need to or not to get inflation under control is irrelevant. They won't do it because they're not going to destroy the global economy. They just simply won't do it. They can't, right? So it's very important to understand that they cannot keep raising these rates forever. In fact, they can't keep raising them for much longer, right? I would assume the rates are getting close to a top, right? 70, not in terms of like the rates itself, but in terms of how many hikes there are going to be left, like maybe 3 or 4 more hikes, right? Maybe a 75, a 50, and a 25, and that's it. Okay, the point is they can't keep doing this forever. You speak to any economist, right, who's got his brain. You speak to most YouTube analysts who have a brain as well. They'll tell you the same thing. They simply can't do it forever. It's only people on YouTube like BitBoy Crypto and like all these big channels who just have no idea what's going on in the macro, and people who are just generally uneducated in the market who say that rates are going to go like double as high as they are now because they have to do it because of inflation and all this. By the way, guys, inflation's topped out. Okay, inflation's topped out. You might say, oh, well, it's only topped out for the time being. It's like, no, it's topped out. It's been topped out since June, right? It's down like more than 1% from its high. It's gone down 3 or 4 consecutive CPI releases. Inflation's topped, okay? So, yeah, inflation's still way too high. Still needs to come down a lot more, but rates are doing their job already. Inflation's trending downwards at this point in time. We have no reason to believe it's going to be going back upwards. And especially not breaking new highs after all the rate hikes. But, at this point, I just wanted to say that I wanted to make that clear. The Fed pivot's closer than people expect. A lot of people just kind of use the vague term, and this is back to what I was saying 2 weeks ago. You ask, oh, why is Bitcoin going to go lower? And they're just like, oh, the macro. It's like, okay, first of all, Bitcoin's not directly connected to traditional markets. We know this because Bitcoin topped out in November while the traditional markets topped out in January. Bitcoin was already down 50% while the traditional markets topped out. It can do the same thing at the bottom. Bitcoin can bottom out first and it can be up first, right? That's the same thing. So Bitcoin doesn't perfectly follow traditional markets. And also, even if it did, the traditional markets aren't going to be... I'm saying the Fed pivot is going to be a lot sooner than people expect, probably in Q1, right? So, let's just settle down on the whole, the macro, when none of us are economists, even myself, right? So, at the end of the day, all I know about the macro is this, okay? And this is a fundamental part of the macro. The market right now is expecting the Federal Reserve to wind down the rate hike magnitudes starting in December, right? I know that the markets predict the future. When the market sees something like that, it prices it in and it goes up. That's what I'm saying. So I think that, the chances of a sub 10K bottom on Bitcoin it's just absolutely ridiculously low. I honestly doubt at this point that we even reach 11K. 13.8K, maybe. I'm honestly looking at 17.6K and maybe a couple of grand below that just for a fake out. That's what I'm looking at this point in time. And yeah, I still believe in the Q4 bottom. So I just wanted to point that out. The macro really isn't... It's bad, it's terrible, but the point is, it's not about whether it's terrible or not. It's about whether the Fed reacts and what way they react. That affects the market. So in terms of that, it's not looking as bad as people would expect. I don't think. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. And hopefully we get some price action tomorrow that isn't scammy. If we keep, I'm telling you right now, if we keep faking out like this above this dotted yellow line, which is part of my buying plan, I'm relying heavily on this dotted yellow line. We can't just buy 50% at a line that's had 4 breakouts and drop back down. It's just not safe. So we might have to change that depending on what happens. We'll see what happens tomorrow. I'll give it another day. And anyway, yeah, we'll leave it at that. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.